Hello and welcome to Westminster Presbyterian Church. This is Sunday, July 13th, 2014.
Our gospel lesson this morning is taken from the 13th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. In this chapter, Matthew has collected a whole series of parables about the nature of God's kingdom for our instruction and challenge, and this is the first one. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the sea. Such great crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat there while the whole crowd stood on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying, "Listen, a sower went out to sow. And as he sowed, some seeds fell on the path, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky ground where they did not have much soil, and they sprang up quickly since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose and they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Let anyone with ears listen." The Gospel of the Lord. We do not have to be very old before we come face to face with disappointment. The toy breaks. Crying does not get us a reprieve from eating our green beans or going to bed. Studying does not always result in a grade of 100 on the test. We're not really good at everything, even some of the things we would really like to be good at, like hitting a ball or being the fastest runner in our class. Then we grow up and our job does not seem to be the highest paying one, and often we feel unnoticed by the boss. A friendship or a marriage breaks up. Sometimes people we like leave the church and they go somewhere else. We do not have to be very old before we come face to face with some kind of disappointment. Well, a very long time ago, our faith ancestors, Isaac and Rebekah, came face to face with disappointment. They had great difficulty in having children, and only after fervent prayer did Rebekah conceive, and as Bill reminded us, bore fraternal twins. But life was hard. The boys, Esau and Jacob, were very different, often at odds with one another. And the truth is, the parents probably contributed to that dissonance. Isaac favored Esau because Esau was a skillful hunter, and Isaac liked meat. Rebekah was partial to Jacob. Esau and Jacob are not in harmony, as we saw when they bartered birthright for a bowl of what we would call chili. It's not a particularly happy family, and it did not seem like things were working out very well. Now, not quite so long ago, our faith ancestors asked questions about success and failure, particularly when they observed the responses to the ministry of Jesus. Why did some people who heard Jesus turn away in indifference? Why did some follow with great enthusiasm and then fade away pretty quickly? And why was there abundant growth in the lives of others? Maybe even some we would least suspect. I know that many of us have pondered on our own families. Why did a sibling who grew up in pretty much the same family we did not share our commitment to Christ and Christ's church? Why does a coworker or a neighbor live without any concern for or interest in a spiritual life? Maybe you've invited someone to come and visit. Oh, it's a little risky. And then they said no, very casually. Now, there are a variety of possible answers to any of these questions, things that we ponder on. And in the 13th chapter of Matthew, there are a whole series of parables about the kingdom and life in the kingdom, and we're going to look at some of the others on other weeks. But the parable of the sower is the first one, and one that is probably familiar to anybody who's hung around the church for a while. And if you haven't hung around the church for a while, it's pretty easy to understand. There's the sower. The sower goes out to sow. And in a variety of places. And often when we hear this story, we do get focused on the various kinds of soil. And we begin to wonder, well, what kind of soil are we? Are we hard where no seeds grow? Do we put up rocks and barriers? Do we have thorns? We won't answer that question. Maybe we have good soil, rich soil in which the Word of God will take root and grow. But the first truth is, the parable's not about us. It's about God. God, the abundant, extravagant sower. On the other hand, it is about us as we seek to live godly lives, lives that maybe mirror some of that abundance, the abundant God. So, 3 stories. In honor of the baseball all-star game on Tuesday, the first one's about baseball. If you don't like baseball, you can just tune this part out. A football season usually has 4 preseason games and 16 regular games, and if you're lucky, some postseason appearances. The regular basketball season has 90 games, but a regular baseball season has 162 games, usually playing several a week. But did you ever stop to think that baseball actually involves a lot of failure? Now, a career batting average of .330 is rare. Only 30 players in the history of baseball with a minimum of 3,000 appearances have such an average, and all but 3 of these 30 retired before 1946. Now, I began to think, well, now, why was that true? We're not going to go there today. We can talk about that after worship. And any of you who love baseball will know that Ty Cobb is the leader with a lifetime average of .366 over 24 seasons, and Rogers Hornsby is second with .358. The most recent player to bat over .400 was Ted Williams, who averaged .406 in 1941. Now, think about it. Even if you bat .400, 600, you strike out, or you fail to get on base, or any of the other reasons why you don't progress. And so, you're face to face with disappointment. I think we can reasonably argue, at least this week, that baseball requires perseverance and pushing forward past disappointment. Because if we allow the disappointments to stop us, we will never be successful. Now, the parable of the sower has a lot of disappointment. But look at the success rate for the seeds that do grow. 30 times, 60 times, 100-fold. The second story is from the Heifer Project. You may know about this program. People give money. Animals are bought. They're shipped all over the world, matching animals with the culture and environment of the country and the families where they are to receive them. The first shipment of animals was in 1944. There were 17 heifers, and they went to Puerto Rico. Now the list of animals sent to 125 countries all over the world includes honeybees, camels, and water buffalo. A perhaps famous story out of the Heifer Project starts in 1993 when a goat went to a family of a girl named Beatrice who lived with her mother and brothers and sisters in a village in Uganda. The family was indeed very poor. Many of you may know this story. None of the children went to school. There was no extra money for the fees or the supplies or the required uniforms. So this family is going to get a goat. Now, there are all kinds of imagined disappointments. A crooked local official could have taken the original goat for himself instead of allowing Beatrice and her family to have it. The goat could have been stolen. The goat could have gotten sick. The goat could have, well, been injured and of no value. Well, you can imagine all the things that might have happened. So it would have been easy to not even try. The goat flourished. Children grew healthy from drinking milk. The goat bore twins. There are other goats in this village. Well, you have to, anyway, okay. And so there's milk to sell, more milk, because there's, twins, and the children continued to be healthy, and more money was saved, and eventually there was enough money for Beatrice, who really wanted to go to school. She kind of caught the eye and attention of other folks, and she was supported through to go to a high school in Uganda. Then she went to a prep school in Massachusetts, and then she got a scholarship to Connecticut College, and she graduated in 2008. A special mass was celebrated in her Ugandan village because she was the first person from her village to get an American college degree. Then she went to the University of Arkansas Clinton Public School of Public Service, where she earned a master's degree in 2010, and she has returned to her country to lead and serve. If you're familiar with this program, you know that flocks of ducks, chickens, or geese can be sent anywhere in the world for $20. Goats and sheep are $120. Water buffalo are $500. Camels, not quite sure why this is, they're $850. But the story makes us smile because it's a story of lots of successes in the face of what could have been lots of disappointments and might have even prohibited folks from moving forward. The third story is more perhaps close to home, although I know baseball is pretty close to home for many of you. The Presbyterian Church. We've had a lot of disappointments. In the decade from 2003 to 2013, our total membership fell from 2,405,311 to 1,760,200, which is a 26.8% loss. That is not good, and a lot of disappointment. It would be foolish for us to pretend that things are all well. In 2003, we had 11,064 congregations, but in 2013, there were only 10,038, which is a loss of about 9%. Our congregations are not as big as they once were, or maybe as we would like for them to be. 77% of our congregations have less than 200 members, which it makes us kind of in the norm. The median membership is 87. We don't have to be very old before we come face to face with disappointments of all kinds. An invitation turned down, a request not honored. Sometimes we get afraid of even inviting because we're tired of being rejected. We don't have to live very many days before we're familiar with and acquainted with discouragement. Okay, so having identified this common experience, when that happens, we can be challenged to get out our Bibles and find the Gospel of Matthew and turn to chapter 13 and read this story again. Now, don't get too focused on the rocks, even though we can think about if there are rocky places in our lives that kind of get in the way of God's growth. We can't think of ourselves or others as hard paths or thistles or briars, even though they may be. We are called to look at the sower, the extravagant sower, the one who works with great abandon, because in ways and places we do not see, the gospel is falling on good soil. Remember that baseball is just not one game. It's a whole season. A season of faithfulness and perseverance, a season of trying and practicing and trying again. Even when our average is only 300, that's pretty good. Even when we do not believe things are going very well, the promise is from God and to all of the kingdom, the promise of abundant harvest, because other seeds fell on good soil, brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Every day, God goes out to sow. And so can we.